So let's do a quick recap. Jesus has been arrested and tried by the Sanhedrin and Herod and Pilate twice. He's been beaten and sentenced to death, just like he predicted in Mark chapter 9 and 10. Then, just as he predicted, after he was handed over to the Gentiles to be killed, he came back to life and he rose from the grave on the third day. Jesus has predicted all of it, and it's all gone exactly as he said it would. Now, on the day that he was crucified, John tells us that there were 4 women who witnessed the execution: Jesus' mother and her sister, Mary Magdalene, and a lady named Mary, the wife of Clopas or Cleopas. These are the same women who followed Jesus along to see where he was buried on Friday, and then they're the ones who went back to embalm the body on Sunday. So with that in place, we're ready to talk about the passage that's in front of us. It's Easter Sunday, or Resurrection Sunday. And 2 men are walking on this road to Emmaus, a little town about 7 miles northwest of Jerusalem. Now, they wouldn't have been making the journey alone. Everyone in the area would have traveled to Jerusalem to attend the Feast of Passover, so now large caravans of people would be traveling back home in groups since the feast was over. But our text focuses on 2 guys in particular, and it even names one of them, Cleopas. The second guy, well, he's never really named, but most theologians believe that it's Luke. See, the gospel writers all had some inference to themselves and anonymity in their text, and they believe that this is Luke's signature to his gospel. So these 2 guys are talking about the events of the past week, and they're pretty despondent. According to them, their hope has been crushed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. At some point, Jesus joins them on their journey, which would have been completely normal. Remember, there are hundreds or maybe thousands of people who are returning after the Passover feast. So Jesus asked them what they're talking about. And they both stopped, or as Luke says, they stood still, looking sad. That's when Cleopas spoke up and said something pretty sarcastic. He looked at Jesus and he said, "Are you the only guy in all of Jerusalem that missed out on what happened over the past week or so?" I mean, you have to admit that when these guys headed off to Jerusalem, they didn't expect to see a brutal crucifixion. That's not exactly good festival event fodder. So after they asked Jesus this question, he responds, like God often does, with a question of his own. Not because he needs to know the answer, but because he wants us to get to an answer. So he looks at these 2 guys and he says, "What things?" They recount the whole arrest and the crucifixion story, and then they tack on the fact that some of their friends went to the grave and couldn't find the body. Here's what's amazing. They even say that their friends told them that they had encountered angels who said that Jesus was alive. But in the midst of all this, they say, "We had hoped that he would be the one to redeem Israel," as if there is no more hope. So Jesus' next words are pretty spot on when he says, "O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe." Then he used their Bible that they knew so well to show them how all of this had transpired exactly as Moses and the prophets had predicted. Then something truly noteworthy happened. As they arrived in Emmaus, they invited Jesus to stick around for supper. He agreed, and they all sat down to eat. And as Jesus blessed and broke the bread at dinner, their eyes were opened, and they knew it was him. And instantly, he was gone. These guys were so pumped up that they ran 7 miles back to Jerusalem to tell the rest of their friends what had happened. And we'll pick up what happened from there with our next lesson. But for now, let's stay focused on the events that we've already outlined, because I think we can find some useful lessons for ourselves here. For instance, these 2 guys knew the whole plan of betrayal, trial, crucifixion, burial, and resurrection because, well, Jesus had predicted it, and because the prophets had predicted it. In the same way, we know incredible amounts of truth regarding God's plan for mankind and for us individually, because it's been revealed by God through experience and through His Word. Then, these guys were surrounded by family and friends who had encountered the risen Jesus. But they couldn't get over the negative shock of the fact that things hadn't gone the way that they had hoped. I've lost count of the times that other people have shared their experiences with God in the hope that it would be an encouragement to me, only to walk away still selfishly captured in my own dashed dreams because things didn't work out the way I thought they should. Finally, Jesus shows up in the middle of their despondent pity party and asks them, "What's wrong?" So they do the best they can to justify their depressed position. And he just calls their thinking foolish. I mean, not with condemnation, but with sympathy, like a parent would show to their child when things don't go their way. Checkmark number 3 for my life. Finally, the Word of God in personal encounter of intimacy opens the eyes of our saddened travelers, and they're filled with joy and new hope. How many times have we been in the same spot? Or maybe we're there right now. So here's the thought. If these guys hadn't invited Jesus to stay for dinner, they never would have had their moment of awakening. If you're fighting through a difficult season of disappointment and discouragement, let me invite you to do something simple. Just before you eat your next meal, will you ask God to interrupt your circumstantial difficulty, open your eyes, and interject new hope? Maybe we shouldn't even wait for the next meal. I mean, Jesus, since you're always with us, will you hear our prayer right now and fix our eyes on you, on your hope, on your plan, on our destiny in heaven? Will you renew our hope? Then give us the strength to run and find the ones who share this hope and celebrate the fact that you're alive and you're well and you're seated on the throne of heaven. I think a simple prayer like that is probably a great place for you and for me to start.